Hello Internet, and welcome to my review for Sword Art Online Alicization Episode 13. This video is several days late at this point, but I'll try to be better next time, really have an excuse. Anyway, when we last left off, Kirito and Yugeo briefly fought against Eldri Synthesis 31, I think, who is the Integrity Knight, to join the Knights after Alice. Probably, we don't actually get that confirmed, but I'm assuming so, based on the number system. But the gang escapes, there are only two of them. Kirito and Yugeo escape with the help of some helpful hair that we learn more about, this episode, where they meet Cardinal, who, after sending Yugeo off to, like, take a bath or something, tells Kirito the whole history of the underworld, on how, Quinella is this artificial Fluctlight who figured out that by killing animals she could gain infinite power, and then kind of took control of the world and created the Taboo Index. And a lot of bad stuff happened thanks to her. And then she tried to take on the Cardinal system, which left to some bad times. So yeah, that's kind of where we left off last episode. Before I begin the review proper, just a reminder, I have my 2019 Winter Anime Review straw poll in the description down below. 5 days until that closes. Let me know what you want to see. And yeah, moving right along. The first thing we learn, as an overarching note, this episode is very big on info dumps. This and the past episode are really, really big on just telling us everything about the underworld. And as a result, the episode is kind of dry. It does its best to liven that up. With the extended fight scene between Cardinal and Quinella. I've heard that in the books, it's only briefly touched upon. But here we see it in full force. Also heard the same thing about the Quinella flashback from last week, or 2 weeks ago, I should say. Was also not really done in detail in the books, but here we get to see Quinella actually exist, and those are both really good adaptation choices. But I don't think they quite save this episode from being a tad dry. But yeah, anyway. So a lot of this is going to be me talking about what we know, or what we've learned. And the first thing we learned is that Cardinal was originally just some normal kid who had her memories overridden by Quinella. So that's a tragic circumstance right off the bat. And we also learn that Quinella and Cardinal kind of act as the main and sub-processors of the original Cardinal system back in Aincrad. What's less clear to me is if they're literally Quinella is the main processor and Cardinal is the sub-processor, personified, because at the end of last week, or last episode, Quinella took the Cardinal system upon herself, and then this week, she realized that she had too much memory, and so she split it up into Cardinal. So I don't quite know if Cardinal is the literal sub-processor of the Cardinal system, or if she's using that as a metaphor, because the sub-processor corrects the errors of the main processor, and Cardinal is correcting the problems with Quinella. That's left kind of vague. But I don't know if that'll be really important too much. If it is, that's something to keep in mind as we go forward. But if not, then we can kind of forget about it. Then we get to the fight between Cardinal and Quinella. As I mentioned, it's a cool sorry, I train of thought there. Where was I? As I said, it is a welcome reprieve from the very talking head aspects of this episode. It's also just a cool showcase of the extremely incredible powers of super skilled Sacred Arts users, and it's well animated. It's a really competent but short fight. It's not a standout fight for the series, but it's fun. It's a fun fight. But anyway, Cardinal realizes that she stands no chance against Quinella, and so she heads to one of the two places Quinella's powers don't work. One of them is the End Mountains, and the land past the End Mountains, and the other is the Great Library. This leads to... So, I understand why Quinella's powers don't work past the End Mountains. That makes sense to me. Because, they're kind of set up. They're the End Mountains are this whole different land that we don't really know too much about. What I don't know about is what's so special about the Great Library. It was kind of implied last episode that it was a part of the Central Cathedral, And so I don't know why it's outside of the ring of Cardinal's powers. It doesn't seem like Cardinal made it outside of Quinella's powers, but she explains it like it already was a part of or already separate from Quinella's powers, outside of Quinella's reach, and it doesn't really explain why. So it's kind of a weird thing to me. But then we learn, quite shockingly, that Berkuli, the guy who, like, the legendary founder of Rulid, who first found the Blue Rose Sword, was the first Integrity Knight. And the detail about him being anti-Axiom Church is a really good detail to show why Quinella picks the people she picks. You know, it makes sense as to why Alice was an Integrity Knight, because she, you know, by defying the Taboo Index, she kind of, like, stood against the Axiom Church. I actually imagine that's what was going to happen to Kirito and Yujeo. They weren't going to die. They were going to, like, become Integrity Knights or something. It does lead to the question, I get in a sense why the strongest fighters would be Integrity Knights, why Eldry would be an Integrity Knight, because, like, if they're strong, it would be, if enough strong people came together, they could turn against Quinella. But that leads to a larger question, in that, going back to Berkuli, aren't all artificial Fluctlights, like, beholden to the Taboo Index? You know, Quinella wasn't going after Integrity Knights until 70 years after she obtained the Cardinal system, which was, and that 70 years did not start until, like, at least 30 or so years after the Taboo Index was created. So Berkuli could not have become an Integrity Knight until around at least a century or so after the Taboo Index became a thing. That 30 years number, by the way, I'm just pulling out of my ass. I don't actually have any source for 30 years. If it's actually another time, feel free to, like, tell me it's another time. But it seems to have been at least some decades since the Taboo Index, when we see old Quinella, you know, create absorb the Cardinal system, I mean, at the end of the last episode. So, like, first off, how was Berkuli able to defy that? Why was Berkuli... How was Berkuli anti-Axiom Church? And also, why does she need to create Integrity Knights? Or maybe it's because the Integrity Knights are going to help take down the Forces of Darkness. That's very much... And Cardinal does make the short mention that that Quinella thinks that the Integrity Knights will be enough to take down the Forces of Darkness, even though she herself does not believe that. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I still don't quite get why Berkuli was able to stand up against the Axiom Church. There's got to be something going on there, I imagine. They brought up Berkuli enough, you know, and the fact that Alice kind of came from Berkuli's area kind of adds some more... Alice and Yujeo came from that same area. Kind of adds a bit more importance to Berkuli, I think, and I'm here. I hope we see more of Berkuli. If he is an Integrity Knight, he's probably still alive. He's probably Synthesis 1. And so he's probably still around. We'll probably run into him. Which means all of this stuff will definitely come back if and when Berkuli shows up. So I'm going to wait until that happens to really get too deep into Berkuli. But after that, we learn that Cardinal has had little helpers scattered across the 4 empires in a way to to find people who might be able to stand up against Quinella. She says that, like, her and Quinella are about equal, but with Quinella having, you know, her choice of Integrity Knights and swordsmen and garrison numbers and the entire forces of the human realm, Cardinal's kind of outmatched. And so we learn that she gave these insects and birds, like, the ability to observe people for her. And we meet the one who's been hanging out in Kirito's hair, I just spoiled her name. Charlotte, a little spider, of course, because Charlotte's web. And in the books, Charlotte is never by name, but at least before this, as far as I know. I'm still on, like, book 10 in the book, so I'm not this far. But Charlotte does make an appearance throughout the Zakaria Sword Tournament that's kind of skipped over in the anime, but it's the first thing Kirito and Yujeo do after leaving Rulid. But in the books, I mean, in the show, I mean, there was just about no build-up for this reveal at all. Besides a little bit last time of Charlotte, like, moving Kirito's bangs to, like, point him the way to the gate or whatever. But the reveal is super weird. You know, there's just a spider hanging out on Kirito's hair. Okay, that's a thing we're doing now. But after that, we get to my reservations about Cardinal and herself. And that is, after this, Cardinal starts talking about, the forces of darkness and how they were definitely going to overpower the human race. That the Integrity Knights, despite Quinella's beliefs, are not enough to handle them, and that Wrath is just going to let them all die. And that doesn't seem right. You know, Cardinal theorizes that Wrath wants the artificial Fluctlights to feel suffering, and she doesn't really know why, I think. But it doesn't quite seem right from what we know is going on in the real world. You know, maybe them striking back, maybe like they're having them go through such hell so they have to break free of the taboo index and therefore stop the hang-up over killing, because Wrath wants them to be used in warfare. Maybe that's it. I don't know. It doesn't. Something about this just does not quite click for me. I imagine I hope that'll be brought up later. I hope it's not just me finding a perceived flaw in the plot. And then Cardinal reveals her plan is to, rather than let the people of the human realm go through such suffering, she's just going to kill them all. Because she can just delete every Fluctlight. Once she gets her main powers back from Quinella, she can just delete every Fluctlight. And what I don't get is, if it's the forces of darkness that are the threat here, why doesn't she just delete the Fluctlights from the Land of Darkness? You know, is that too precise? Is there only a delete all or a delete none option in her, like, brain or something? I don't know. But what this does lead me to is Cardinal despises Wrath. We see it throughout this episode. But she's not that different from Wrath, interestingly enough. You know, both her and Wrath are perfectly fine with all the Fluctlights being dead. And that's the most obvious thing. But interestingly enough, they both take their names from not their names, but the way they name things is based off of classic children's literature. You know, Wrath, of course, is filled with Alice in Wonderland references, both in the Alice system itself, the ocean turtle, the name Wrath. And then Cardinal here, we see her spider is literally named Charlotte. Like Charlotte's Web, you know? So I think Cardinal is not, I don't think Cardinal's a good person, to put it simply. I don't know. I think Cardinal's a really interesting character. I think the narrative seems to be painting her as too sympathetic for what she's, like, doing. You know, she's like, hey, I'm gonna kill everybody. Except for, like, the 10 people you like, you can, like, save them in storage. They won't be alive. They'll be archived somewhere so you could, like, play with them again. I don't know. Cardinal's all kinds of fucked up, and I hope it's not just, like, dropped. Kirito's like, no, I'll find a third path, and you won't have to do that, and then we'll never talk about that time Cardinal wanted to just, like, freeze 10 people and wipe out the rest of humanity. It's a really weird thing, and I hope it's not just abandoned forever. Kirito's decision to help Cardinal, though, is fairly classic Kirito. You know, he acknowledges that pretty much all the hang-ups I have about Cardinal, except less damningly. But he's like, for now, we're both trying to take down Quinella, and he thinks Cardinal's a good person deep down, and so he's gonna find a way to save all the Fluctlights. Kirito's just a good guy. Kirito gets a lot of shit in anime fandom. Kirito's just a genuinely good guy, and he does not get the respect he deserves for just genuinely being a decent person. I deeply love Kirito. He's a good guy. He's just a nice guy. But anyway, after that long dump of information, Kirito and Cardinal head out, meet up with Eugeo. Cardinal reveals that the Central Cathedral is apparently growing, and Quinella's chambers are now on the 100th floor. So they have 100 floors to travel up. Their weapons are on the 3rd floor. And she helps them figure out how to get like the secret powers out of their weapons. And then she hands them a small knife and tells them that if you cut Alice with this, because she mentioned like there's a way to save the Integrity Knights. Integrity Knights were created much the same way Cardinal was created, I think. But by giving them something of their like past memories, they can break through Quinella's spell. But she warns them that won't really matter because if they fight an Integrity Knight, they'll either kill them or be killed. But then she gives them a way out. She hands them both like 2 small knives and says, if you can cut her with this, I can use my sacred arts on her and just put Alice to sleep. Eugeo specifically has a hang-up over killing Alice, of course, and that's what leads to this. And I'm not sure how much I trust that offer. You know, we know she's incredibly callous. She is perfectly fine with wiping out all of humanity if it means that, like, they won't suffer in the long run. And we know she cares little for, like, the lives of the citizens of Underworld. So honestly, I think it's just as likely for her to use her sacred arts to, like, kill Alice rather than just put her to sleep. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens when they eventually find Alice, whenever that happens. Probably by the end of the core, I imagine. But with that, our heroes are off to save the world as the credits play over their departure from the library. And, you know, they gotta go fight a shit ton of Integrity Knights now. Yay! So yeah, this was a fine episode. Just like last time, it was a lot of talking. But unlike last time, it was without as much of the nice flashback visuals that kind of like made the Quinella material compelling. You know, seeing Quinella actually like get up in the world and like slowly but surely gain more power was a really cool thing to see. But the little bit we got of flashback visuals were fun. The Cardinal fight was cool. Cardinal's character, as I mentioned extensively throughout the video, does give us a lot to think about going forward, as we will have to deal with her desire to just like wipe out the underworld at some point. But we can worry about that later. We've got knights to fight. So next time is Kirito and Eugeo versus the world. I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the episode and the video. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe or fill out that straw poll down below, please. Or, you know, do whatever the fuck you want. I don't really care. And as always, people, keep kicking ass, and I'll see you in the future. Bye!